The 49ers substation is back at it again. How is San Francisco going to bandage an already ailing wide receiver room? Plus, we're ranking the top 32 guards in the NFL as we continue the Grey Duck 250 on the Grey Duck NFL Show. Well, hello and welcome to the Grey Duck NFL Show. I'm your host, Josh Kolojeski, where we talk all things NFL, keeping you updated with the latest news and notes across the NFL each and every Tuesday and Thursday here on the Grey Duck Sports Network. You can follow us on the Grey Duck Sports Network over on Twitter or YouTube. We are at Grey Duck Sports in both of those areas. And then on TikTok, we are at grey.duck.sports. In all of those places, you can find the podcast episodes that we record, the clips from the show that I think are the most pertinent, as well as different stories that we document and series about stories from the history of the NFL. And if you like baseball, we've got some baseball stuff on there as well. And once again, that is at Grey Duck Sports on both Twitter and YouTube, and at grey.duck.sports on TikTok. You can please give us a follow, like, and subscribe, and comment on whatever it is you enjoy there. It certainly helps us as we continue to expand, or as I continue to expand this Grey Duck Sports Network. So if you like the content in this, please hit the follow button here on YouTube or whatever podcast app you are currently using to listen here. We've got a full show once again today, heading into a wonderful Tuesday of continued NFL training camp. Some news that is on the unfortunate side, with a couple of players having their seasons ended or significantly cut short already in the first couple of weeks of practices as the season ramps up to return in September. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about what those teams are going to do to fill the gaps of the players who are now gone. We're talking some players that are returning from season-ending injuries from a year ago, and we're also going to get in to some recent signings and transactions that are happening that have gone under the radar but might still play a big impact during the 2026 regular season. Once you get through the news, we will go back to our Grey Duck Top 250 series, where we are ranking the top 32 players at each position in every single show, and it will all culminate with the top 250 NFL players per our Grey Duck rankings for the 2026 season. And today we're going to be talking about offensive guards for the NFL, the top 32, who I think are going to be the top 32 for the 2026 campaign. All of that is coming up on the show, so let's not waste any more time and get into it here on the Grey Duck NFL Show. Well, the San Francisco 49ers curse continues. It seems like over now the past 3 years since they made the Super Bowl and lost to the Kansas City Chiefs back after the 2023 season, it has been continued bad luck, bad news about injuries after injury after injury to all of their key players. Last year, of course, it was Nick Bosa, it was Fred Warner, it was a lot of Ricky Pearsall being out. Spoiler alert, Ricky Pearsall is going to play a significant factor during this segment of the show. It was Christian McCaffrey in 2024. It was all sorts of injuries affecting this team and preventing them from making the postseason altogether in 2024. And giving them a lower ceiling than they otherwise would have had in 2025, where they did still make the playoffs and won a playoff game before eventually getting blown out by the Seattle Seahawks. And the curse that continues this time, the curse is biting Ricky Pearsall, who we just mentioned. He is going to be out for the season with a PCL injury. He's going to have surgery. It will take 6 to 12 months for him to fully recover from that surgery, so he should be back for the 2027 season. But Ricky Pearsall, the wide receiver, entering his third year for San Francisco, who had a lot of promise that still hasn't lived up completely to that promise just yet, but that mostly hasn't been due to a lack of skill. It's been to a lack of availability after injury after injury after injury. And this, for Pearsall, in particular, is another bad break for a guy who has nothing but bad breaks during the course of his NFL career. Pearsall, you might remember, before he ever made it to 49ers training camp, after being drafted by the team with the 31st overall pick in the first round of the 2024 NFL Draft, he gets shot, and he has to miss time recovering from being shot. And that is one terrible way to start off your NFL career, which is by no fault of your own. And so Pearsall finally was able to get back on the field during his rookie season, had some good moments during his 2024 campaign, 31 catches, 400 yards, 3 touchdowns in 11 games as kind of a 4th and 5th option, since that team had Deebo Samuel, it had Juwan Jennings, it sometimes had Brandon Aiyuk and George Kittle. They didn't have to rely heavily on Ricky Pearsall a ton. Last year, they had to rely on him a little bit more, especially earlier on in the season. He gets off to a fast start. He suffers with a couple of different injuries during the 2025 campaign that limit him to just 9 total games in 2025, 36 receptions for 528 yards, and no touchdowns during his sophomore campaign last year. So that is the production that this 49ers team is missing. And if you just look at the numbers, you'd say, okay, well, they should be able to replace that decently. It's not a guy that's going for 1,000 yards, but I think most 49ers fans will tell you that they see Ricky Pearsall as a guy that, even though he hasn't gone for 1,000 yards in any of his 2 NFL seasons just yet, he certainly has that potential. And missing out on what they assumed would finally be his breakout season after it looked to happen at the beginning of the 2025 season is another just sour note on a career that has not gone the right way through no fault of the ability of said player. Pearsall, I did not like him as much coming out of college. He was a decent receiver, I thought. I didn't think he was among the tops that were in that loaded 2024 class. He goes in the first round. I think I had him more as a 3rd or 4th round sort of player based on my evaluation. And he's not always the best route runner. He doesn't always have the best agility. There are times where his head fake works, and there's times where he is very quick out of the break, but it's not always consistent. And sometimes he can be glued up and sticked up by corners if he is in man-to-man coverage. But against zones, he works very nicely. He knows where to sit down. He also has just excellent body control and balance, and he can track the ball extremely well and has good speed and size. So even if you'd like to see him get a little bit more polish on the routes, the body control and the ability to really just go after the football and be able to kind of have sneaky hands so that he doesn't have to go up for a contested catch and grab it, but is able to just deke the defenders at the last second to be able to slip a little bit more open at the very end as the football is coming his way. I saw that a couple of times against Kobe Bryant during their first matchup between the 49ers and Seahawks during week 1 of the regular season. That was something that impressed me the most. There were times where he was getting locked up, yes, but there was also times where he was able to stack the receiver, use the head fake to the inside, and get open on the outside for some big gains. He was going to be used. He's not necessarily deep threat. He can be used in that intermediate part of the field. He can be used shallow. He can be used in the slot. He can be used on the outside. A variety of different ways to use Ricky Pearsall. He's not just a one-trick pony. He has a lot of different skills that make him a valuable wide receiver, and so it is a shame that he's going to be out for all of the 2026 season and missing a pivotal 3rd year of development. And probably going to miss out then on that 5th year option if the 49ers, have decided that they have not seen enough of him just being purely available to exercise that fifth-year option at the end of this 2026 season. It's hard to believe that those 2024 draft picks are already getting their 2026 options exercised after this year comes to an end. So that is a big hit, once again, to a 49ers team that has just put up with that over the last 2 years with, it seems like, every single one of their big-name players at least once. And it just so happens that Pearsall has been in that position all 3 seasons as one of those players that has been affected by the substation. If you're into the conspiracy theories that say it's the substation radiation that is the cause of all of these injuries that is near the 49ers training facility. And, well, maybe you'd be onto something, because not only is Pearsall now out for the season, but in their most recent practice, the 49ers were without second-round pick De'Zhaun Stribling and free agent acquisition Mike Evans. Both of them missed practice. Now, those injuries are not expected to be anything major, but it is just something to note that 49ers players continue to get banged up. And maybe for Mike Evans, it was just, a veteran rest day. But thankfully, the 49ers do have some depth at receiver. But now if Mike Evans and De'Zhaun Stribling, start to miss more time, if these are injuries that potentially could linger at all. And I'm not saying that they are, and they don't seem to be. I mean, maybe at one point you're eventually going to have to go to Brandon Aiyuk and beg him to play for your squad. I doubt that will ever be in the cards. But hopefully Stribling and Evans can get back to work on Tuesday and be just the same guys that you expect them to be heading into the 2026 season. But Mike Evans is a guy that's dealt with some injuries over the last couple of seasons, and De'Zhaun Stribling is unproven, to say the least. I was not a huge fan of where he was drafted, and I'm not sure how big of an impact he's going to be able to have during his rookie season, but they're going to depend on him now that Ricky Pearsall is going to be out for the year, and, Brandon Aiyuk is a crazy man that is not going to play another snap, certainly not for the 49ers, and possibly not in the NFL. So in order to shore up the receiving depth, the San Francisco 49ers brought in an old friend. Yes, Deebo Samuel is returning to San Francisco on a 1-year, $7 million deal for the 2026 campaign. He is going back to his number 19. He had used 1 for his final couple of seasons with San Francisco, and you might remember he was traded to Washington during the 2025 offseason after the 2024 season. He goes to Washington. He has a decent season with both Jaden Daniels and Marcus Mariota throwing him the football. He's entering his age 30 season. Last year, he had 72 catches for 727 yards, 5 touchdowns. Also had the fewest rushing attempts in any season of his career, 17 rushes for 75 yards and a touchdown. Again, he has that versatility. You can use him as a running back. I know in 2021 is when he was used a ton as a running back, and after that, he kind of asked the team to not use him in that regard as often. But they still like to use him as that gadget player. He has gotten a little bit bigger. He has gotten a little bit slower, but he still has some of that playmaking ability that he had during his first stint for San Francisco. I don't think that he is that same guy with the, elite agility, but he is able to break tackles, and he is still able to get open. So again, you have to use him in a very certain specific sort of way to maximize his production on the field, but at the very least, he gives you some sort of fill-in for Ricky Pearsall, even if he can't be used in the same way as Ricky Pearsall for the 2026 season. But Deebo Samuel, again, coming back to the 49ers, I like it. I'm not sure I love it. I think that this Pearsall injury is going to hurt the 49ers offense, and Brock Purdy is a guy that I think needs as many weapons around him as possible in order to maximize his production on the field. Another player that is dealing with an injury is the Bears defensive back Kobe Bryant. He had hyperextended his knee, also suffered a bone bruise and a small fracture during a practice last week. And just yesterday it was announced that Bryant would miss 8 to 10 weeks, which would keep him out for essentially the first half of the regular season. And it is a Bears team that, even as Ben Johnson said, it was a highly variant team last year, and so that is the motivation that they're using. That a lot of outlets are saying, okay, they can't have that same sort of variance this year and make it to the postseason. And especially with this Kobe Bryant injury, I'm starting to kind of lean towards that line of thinking, because the Chicago Bears defense last year was not great, whether it was against the run or against the pass. They were sometimes able to blitz and have success with that, but they played a lot of man coverage despite losing some cornerbacks. They had to rely a lot on turnovers, which are very mercurial and change drastically on a year-to-year basis. And they lost Kevin Byard, who was a great safety and was one of the major guys that created some of those turnovers over the last couple of years with Chicago. And Kobe Bryant was one of the players that they brought over during this offseason from the world champion Seattle Seahawks to be a key part of the Bears defense and filled the shoes a little bit of what Kevin Byard had done for them the last couple of seasons. So when you don't have that now, and also they lost their big cornerback from a year ago, Nashawn Wright. Now granted, Kyler Gordon is a great nickel, and Jalen Johnson is going to play a lot on the outside, and those guys were injured a lot during last season, so I think you are still going to get better defensive back play than you had, or at least you were until this Kobe Bryant injury. So now Dylan Thieneman is going to be even more relied upon and probably going to be forced into action. I'm not sure if Dennis Allen and company wanted to get him a lot of action in the first place anyway, or if they thought he was ready for it regardless, but now they don't have that decision to make. He needs to be thrust into action, even if they don't think that he is completely ready to make as big of an impact as you'd want from your first round safety. I loved Dylan Thieneman coming out. I didn't necessarily love him for the Minnesota Vikings and the fit that he would have there, but I think that he is going to have a good career for the Chicago Bears. It all depends on, does that good career start off with a good rookie season here in 2026? I think it's going to need to if this Bears team wants to have success defensively and if they want to repeat as NFC North champions. Because Kobe Bryant, he signed in the offseason for 3 years, $40 million. That's a big contract. He had 7 interceptions combined over the last 2 seasons, including a pick 6. You're losing out on that production, and it was production that was replacing a player that had even better production in Kevin Byard. So interesting to see what that does for the Bears defense. They didn't do a lot to improve on their defensive line, so I'm not sure if their run defense is going to be much better or if their pass rush is going to be much better. There's a lot of aging players like Grady Jarrett and Montez Sweat on that defensive line that I'm not sure how they'll hold up through the course of a 17-game season. I like the Chicago Bears as a team because I love Caleb Williams, but I am starting to grow concerned that this defense that easily could have been a pitfall for them all of last year will now be a pitfall for them in 2026, and they might have to take a step back. And I don't know if the Kobe Bryant injury is the main reason that I think that, or if it's just something that pointed my attention and focused me a little bit more on the Bears defense as I was breaking it down after reading the news. So it's not necessarily that that this defense hinges on the health of Kobe Bryant. I think it's more so this defense needs a lot to go right, and it's already having one of its things that it needed to go right go wrong early on in this training camp. Now, hopefully he's able to recover, and he's hopefully able to make an impact during the second half of the season, and then it's almost like you're, the old cliche, acquiring a guy at the trade deadline when you get a guy back from injury. That's essentially what it will feel like, and maybe during that first half of the season, Dylan Thieneman has worked out all the kinks in his game, and you've now got 2 grade A safeties to go along with Jalen Johnson, and hopefully Tyreek Stevenson can continue taking steps forward. He's been hit or miss throughout his NFL career, and then you get a good nickel with Kyler Gordon, and then you have a pretty good defensive secondary, and it's all just boiled down to, can you get the pass rush going with 4 men, or do you have to continue to get blitzers and then leave vacated space for opposing quarterbacks to have the opportunity to pick apart if they're able to read the blitz successfully? Again, maybe Dylan Thieneman makes those steps quickly and becomes the player that I believe that he will eventually be in his NFL career right from the very start, right from the very first snap. But the ifs are beginning to mount for the Chicago Bears, and starting to lower the percentage in my mind that they will have a repeat return to the playoffs, whereas I kind of went into the post-draft process and the summer process thinking that almost locking them down for one of the 7 spots in the NFC. I'm not so sure about that currently. Another injury, this one, not a player that is as high profile just yet, but a player that I really liked coming out of this 2026 draft class. And I thought even if he didn't meet my expectations, would certainly have a role in being a player that makes the Carolina offense a little bit more explosive, and that is wide receiver from Tennessee, Chris Brazzell II. We talked about him suffering the injury at practice last week. It has now been announced that he will be out for the entire 2026 season. His entire rookie season he will miss because of an injury. Brazzell is another one of these long line of Tennessee wide receivers that is tall and fast, and most of those guys have been guys that can only run a couple of routes because Tennessee doesn't really do a great job at developing their wide receivers to be pro ready. Now the difference with Brazzell was he only spent 1 year at Tennessee, his final season, and he put up good numbers while he was at Tulane and played in a lot different sort of offense and got a lot of different routes and got a lot of different places in the formation. He didn't just line up outside like he did at Tennessee. He kind of used Tennessee as a place to make his name bigger and make his draft stock go up, but he had the experience in a bunch of different routes, in a bunch of different alignments at Tulane. He gained that experience there, even if he wasn't able to show it during his final season. I liked him as a guy that if you were going to use a lot of dagger, which is one of my favorite concepts, and dagger is this play where you have 2 receivers on one side of the field, and the second receiver, the one that is on the inside, just runs a fade route, runs a fly route, whatever it is that you want to call it, a go deep. He just runs deep, runs vertical, and that is designed to pull the safety to him, whether it is cover 2, and that is the half safety on that side of the field, or in cover 3 the middle safety comes over, and then that outside receiver runs about a 12-yard dig or in route and has a bunch of space now to work with because the safety has been cleared out by the fly route. And then I thought, okay, then you can add even what Sean Payton likes to do off of that, which is a Y cross, which is you have a third receiver on that side, the innermost receiver now. He runs just a deep crosser route so that the linebackers on the second level can't just get deeper back into their drops to prevent the dagger, because now they have 2 different windows that they have to cover, and those windows are now being stretched out. And now either the Y cross is going to be open, or the deep in is going to be open, or the coverage is blown altogether, and you have Chris Brazzell going in for a 70-yard touchdown because the safety wasn't able to get him over the top. I was very interested to see how that they would use the speed of Chris Brazzell in this offense, even during the times where he was not going to be the primary focus and he was not going to get the ball, but he was going to open up more space for Ted McMillan, who's an excellent route runner and excellent after the catch, to have more room to work with, and Jalen Coker, who's excellent after the catch, to have more room to work with. But alas, we will not see that in 2026. Maybe we will see that in 2027, but if you're Bryce Young, I think you were really hoping to throw passes to an even wider open Ted McMillan this year. So that is a weapon that is lost and could hurt the Panthers' chances at making it back to the postseason. But I think one guy that's breathing a sigh of relief would be Xavier Legette, and he was the Panthers' first-round pick in the 2024 draft. They had traded back into the first round to select him with number 32 right after Ricky Pearsall was selected, and he has not lived up to expectations. A guy that I did like coming out because of his hands and his size and his speed and all of that, and I thought he had a decent year running routes during his final year at South Carolina. He has not really been that guy and has had some issues with his hands during his first 2 seasons at the NFL level. But now he gets I think Chris Brazzell was in good position to take his spot on the depth chart and perhaps kick him off of the Panthers roster altogether. I think this is a good opportunity for Legette really to have one last chance to really prove himself. And he's not going to be used in the same way that I think Brazzell was going to be used. But he can be, and he can be that outside X receiver that can be physical, opposite of Tet McMillan. It's just, can he have production there? And so far, the answer during his NFL career has been a resounding no, unfortunately. So let's get off of the injuries, and let's move over to a bit of better news, and that is that over in Green Bay, where Tucker Kraft has been cleared to return to practice. Tucker Kraft is one of the most underrated players in the NFL. I think he finally started to catch some buzz during the first half of last season, but then in week 9, he tears his ACL and misses the rest of the year. And that was the first kind of kink in the Packers' armor last year. I believe at that point they were 5-2-1 or 6-2-1 when he went down. And after he went out, they had a couple more games where Micah Parsons was still available on the defensive side, and then Micah Parsons went out with the torn ACL, and you lost both of those key players, one on offense, one on defense, for the rest of the season, and it ended up being a 4-game losing streak to close out the regular season, and then a loss to the Chicago Bears in the wild card round, despite having a big lead, 21-3, at one point in that game. The good news is he's back. He is ready to go. I believe he is practicing fully for Green Bay, or at least ramping up to practice fully for the Packers. And that is excellent news for a guy that I think really makes this Packers offense go, and is a favorite target of Jordan Love, and is a favorite focal point of the offense for Matt LaFleur. And I think he's going to be even more of a focal point, depending on how close to 100% he is during the regular season after recovering from that torn ACL. But I think he's going to be more of a focal point because you're still not sure yet if Josh Jacobs is going to face a suspension for the domestic violence incident that he had during the offseason, and the allegations that arose from that, and the multiple accusations that he had in that arena. We're not sure if the NFL is going to punish him. He's practicing right now. It doesn't look like they're going to punish him. It would be a surprise to me, and I would be fairly disappointed in the personal conduct policy if it is not able to punish a guy that has fairly credible allegations of domestic abuse against him. If the NFL goes that route, it's going to definitely turn me off a little bit. But if they don't go that route and they do suspend Josh Jacobs for a little bit, then Tucker Kraft becomes an even more important focal point for a team that has lost Dontavian Wicks, and for a team that has lost Romeo Doubs during the free agent cycle for Doubs, and then trading Wicks to the Philadelphia Eagles. The wide receiver core is still solid, but I don't think it has a true number one playmaker like I think Tucker Kraft can be. I think he is a top 5 tight end in the NFL. Last year, during his 8 games, he had 32 catches for 489 yards and 6 touchdowns. So he was the number one option on a lot of plays for Jordan Love, designed by Matt LaFleur. He was able to get open and work with plenty of space, some of that by design, some of that by just savvy. And when he had that much open space, he was very, very hard to stop. He was like the juggernaut, where once he gets rolling, once he gets some momentum, he is impossible to stop. That was Tucker Kraft. And the Packers offense, when Kraft played for the first half of the season, was 25.8 points per game. After his injury, the Packers averaged 20.6 points per game, so took a significant dip down of 5+ points per game with one player getting injured. Jordan Love was the same quarterback. Josh Jacobs was the same running back. Tucker Kraft meant that much to the Green Bay Packers offense, and now he is finally back. You're also hoping that Matthew Golden can rebound from a disastrous rookie campaign, a historically bad rookie campaign, and that Christian Watson can really be the guy that he was post-injury last year. He became the focal point of the offense after Tucker Kraft got injured, and he did an excellent job at it. And then you're also hoping to get stuff from like Savion Williams and, of course, Jaden Reed. I really liked Savion Williams coming out, and I would love to see him used as not just a gadget player, but as a wide receiver. I think he's a good route runner with good speed and size, and I think he could make some plays in this Packers offense if he's not just... If the Packers can open up their mind a little bit on offense and give him more of a role, I think he would reward them for that. But no matter what, it's going to be Tucker Kraft as the first option and as the top dog that needs the most targets in this Packers offense, because I just think he's the best pure playmaker that they have on offense. Moving on from Tucker Kraft and going to a couple of signings during training camp, and one of those is a homecoming. We already talked about one homecoming, Deebo Samuel joining the San Francisco 49ers again. Houston is bringing back its former number 1 overall pick from all the way back in 2013, or 2014, I should say, and that is Jadeveon Clowney joining the Houston Texans, or rejoining, I should say, the Houston Texans. He spent the first half of his career with them, and then since has bounced around to a couple of different places. He played with Dallas last year, so he's staying in the Lone Star State and playing for the team that ended up drafting him as the first overall pick again in 2014. And I love this move for Houston. This was a Houston team that I was talking about last week, potentially, if they wanted to, maybe make a run at Vita Vea and just make this defensive line completely dominant. Adding Jadeveon Clowney as a rotational pass rusher, whenever you need a break to Neil Hunter or whenever you need a break, Will Anderson, Jadeveon Clowney is not either of those guys, but he is excellent against the run, and he can still rush the passer with some effectiveness. Maybe not quite the dominance of their starting two guys, but with some pretty good effectiveness nonetheless on that Texans defensive line. So you're not going to, if someone gets injured or if they just need a little bit of a break to catch their breath, you're not going to miss out on a ton of production because Jadeveon Clowney can fill a lot of that gap. So just a great rotational edge piece to bring on there. And I think the defensive line is just going to be deadly this year, especially if they can find a way to bring Vita Vea, who I think more often or more likely than not will stay with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and get his contract extension. But again, if it is an untenable situation, the Houston Texans should absolutely go after him and pair Vita Vea up with the two edge rushers and also with the rookie, Caden McDonald from Ohio State, who is kind of the Vita Vea or Dexter Lawrence second model, the 2.0. So I think they should go and make a run for Vita Vea, but they do continue to improve their defense by bringing in a savvy veteran pass rusher in Jadeveon Clowney. The Detroit Lions, maybe they found their Alex Anzalone replacement by bringing in Devin White, who has had some ups, some downs during his career, was a Pro Bowler in 2021, is when he was a Pro Bowler. I believe he was a first-round pick in 2019, and hasn't quite lived up to that billing. He might have even been a top 10 pick for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Only the one Pro Bowl. He played last year with the Las Vegas Raiders, was fine. He had 2.5 sacks. He had a ton of tackles. I haven't gone back on tape to watch and see if, were all of those tackles because the Raiders were just that bad of a team and it was necessary for him to make those tackles, or was he shooting the gap a lot of those times and being the playmaker? Was he just receiving the ball carrier, or was he attacking the ball carrier? I think that makes a difference. I haven't looked at that quite yet, but Either way, a guy that has 170 plus tackles over the course of the season has proven himself to be somewhat of a reliable tackler, and I think that's really what you need next to Jack Campbell. That's what Alex Anzalone was. Reliable tacklers. And Alex Anzalone, of course, now with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But if you pair Devin White with Jack Campbell, I think that's a good couple of two linebackers for that Detroit Lions team, and I think he can fill the role and maybe even be better than Alex Anzalone was. I know a lot of folks like Alex Anzalone. I had my mixed feelings about Alex Anzalone. I think he did some things really well and missed assignments a lot as well. Devin White, let's see if he can outproduce Alex Anzalone and help this Detroit Lions defense take a step forward in 2026 as they look to get back to the postseason after missing it in 2025, despite going 9-8 last year. So those are a couple of signings, and from that we move on to a couple of players retiring from the NFL. And one of those players is former Saints offensive lineman and first-round pick Andrus Peat. He has decided to hang up his cleats. He played with the Saints from 2015 until, I believe, 2023. He made the Pro Bowl 3 years in a row from 2018 to 2020, was a key part of the Renaissance Saints teams that had big years after Alvin Kamara and Marshawn Lattimore and all those guys were drafted by them. He was a part of those teams. He was a part of the team that got robbed of an NFC Championship appearance because of a no call on what should have been a pass interference penalty. But he had a successful career. I don't think Hall of Fame career, but a successful career. So congratulations to Andrus Peat for hanging it up, and he'll be able to, he might be a Ring of Honor guy. When you make 3 Pro Bowlers, I think that's the magic number to kind of ensure yourself as a Ring of Honor guy. So I think he will end up in the Saints Ring of Honor or whatever they call their, team Hall of Fame, but I don't think he is a Pro Football Hall of Fame sort of player. And then Ja'Lynn Polk, also retiring from the NFL after just 2 seasons. One of the bigger disappointments from the 2024 draft. I did not have a high grade on Ja'Lynn Polk. I thought he was far and away the worst of the 3 Washington receivers that were coming into the league between him, Jalen McMillan, and Rome Odunze. I thought Ja'Lynn Polk was not a great route runner, not a great athlete, didn't do a lot well except, have good body control and make some contested catches, and I didn't think that was going to translate well. The New England Patriots had him with the 2nd round pick. They cut him after 1 year. He, I believe, was playing for New Orleans, and he decides to retire from the NFL. So just not a guy that really ever had, I think, an NFL athleticism in order to do what he did in college at a level that is a tier above. So both Andrus Peat and Ja'Lynn Polk retiring from the NFL. And that is the news that I have for you today. So let's get into what everybody is here for, and that is the Grey Duck Top 250. And today we are counting down the guard position. And if you don't know what the Grey Duck Top 250 is, I'll give you a brief rundown. It is my attempt to rank and project the rankings of the top 250 NFL players for the 2026 season. This is not just based on your past performances. This is based on how I think these players will perform based on their schemes, based on their new scenarios, based on rookies that are in there, based on their opportunities, who I think will perform the best during 2026. My projection of them for 2026. And obviously, some of it has to be based on past track record, but I'm not just doing these rankings as who here is who has been the best out of all of the players that are starting in 2026. Here is who has had the best career out of all of them. That's not what I'm doing. I'm doing who is going to be the best at their position in 2026. So in order to build this list of top 250 NFL players, I'm going position by position by position and ranking the top 32 at each position. And that will give me a list of 400 to 500 players to work from to whittle down to the top 250, which will be released just before the start of the regular season next month. And today, like I said, we're going to go with the offensive guard position. We'll go 32 up to number 1, and we will start with number 32. And that is Elijah Vera Tucker from the New England Patriots. And I really do like Elijah Vera Tucker. And when you talk about guards, each team has 2 starting guards, and that means there are 64 starting guards in the NFL. There's going to be more that come in because of performance or injury, but top 64 going into the season. If you're at number 32, you're right in the middle of that pack. So Elijah Vera Tucker, I have him there. I think he's a little bit better than that overall ranking from his skill, but again, he's a player that has dealt with injuries throughout the course of his career. So I can't have full confidence in putting him even higher, even though he has been a reliable guard at every stop of his NFL career, and I expect no different as he takes that. I believe, I'm not sure if Michael Onwenu or him is the right or left guard. I'm not sure which plays at which position, but I think he is going to be a good option there, and, a good stopgap for when the team inevitably has to bring Will Campbell to the interior. So one, it can make room for Caleb Lomu, and 2, Will Campbell can be at a position that he can actually be good at. Number 31, Osiris Torrance of the Buffalo Bills is, again, the 31st guard in the rankings. He is the only Bills player that I have on this list. They lost David Edwards in free agency, and they're going to depend a lot on a player who was their 6th offensive lineman. So he had a lot of playing time because Buffalo ran a lot of run sets with 6 offensive linemen. That is Alec Anderson. But now Alec Anderson is going to be thrust into a starting role opposite of Osiris Torrance, and I think Osiris Torrance is solid, not great, but does enough on this Buffalo offensive line to make an impact, and that's why he comes in at number 31. Then number 30 from the Indianapolis Colts, I have Matt Gonsalves. Matt Gonsalves does a lot of good things for Indianapolis. He's not quite Quentin Nelson, who will be much, much higher up in this list. Spoiler alert, but he does really, he did have a good season in his first year as the team's full-time starting guard. He played a lot of it in 2024 after Will Fries went down, but he kind of got the position all to himself in 2026, or in 2025, and now is going to have that again here in 2026. So I like Matt Gonsalves. I would not be surprised if he takes an even further step forward. And then number 29 from the Las Vegas Raiders, we're going Jackson Powers Johnson. And this was a player that I think is playing out of position. I loved him as a center coming out of Oregon. He ended up going in the 2nd round to the Raiders, played center a little bit in Las Vegas, but they did not like enough of what they saw from him, so they bring in Tyler Linderbaum and move Jackson Powers Johnson out to guard. I think that is going to be a formidable interior offensive line for the Las Vegas Raiders between both Jackson Powers Johnson and Tyler Linderbaum. I want to see him play a lot more guard first. I know in the times that he has been played at guard, it hasn't looked great, but now with the full season going in with the mindset that you are playing at this position all year long, I think that he will take some steps forward. Then number 28 on our list, it is Arizona's offensive guard, Isaac Seumalo. He had a really good season with Pittsburgh last year, hits free agency, and gets a good deal with Arizona. I think him and Isaiah Adams, who just missed our list, are going to be adequate enough to open up running lanes for Jeremiah Love. I think a big worry by a lot of draft pundits and draft quote-unquote experts was that if Arizona drafts Jeremiah Love, they're bringing him into a situation much like Ashton Genty was brought into last year, and I don't think that's true because I do like what Isaac Seumalo has been able to do over the past couple of seasons, and I like what he brings to Arizona. Yeah, and again, I'm also decently high on Isaiah Adams, so I think those guys are going to pave a lot of open space for Jeremiah Love and make the Cardinals a little bit more dangerous than I think they're getting credit for right now nationally. Number 27, I have Ed Ingram of Houston. Very good run blocker, very good people mover, not as great in pass protection, but Houston is going to need him to be in order to protect C.J. Stroud, and then also just continue to be good at opening up run lanes for now it will be Woody Marks and David Montgomery, splitting a lot of that time as the 1-2 options for the Houston Texans this upcoming season. Ed Ingram is going to be a pivotal part of, I think, the overall success of this team, because I think the overall success of this team hinges on what this offensive line is able to do and how much of a step forward it collectively can take with a couple of new faces from the 2025 season. It took a half step forward from 2024 to 2025 and took a further step forward from 2025. They're hoping to 2026 to be at least league average. Then Mason McCormick from the Pittsburgh Steelers comes in at number 26 on our list. I like him. I want to see him one more year before moving him up the list. And now not having Isaac Seumalo opposite of him, I want to see him as the primary interior guard for the Pittsburgh Steelers. He came from South Dakota State, so small school guy, making the top 32 list of the Grey Duck top 250 guards is definitely a plus for him. Then John Simpson, old reliable guard. He's with the Baltimore Ravens, and he had just played with the New York Jets. He had been solid and good, above average every single year he was with the Jets, and he's going to bring that pedigree now over to Baltimore. 24, a guy that I think took some steps back in 2026, and that is Trey Smith, who got the big contract at the end of the 2025 season. He plays for Kansas City, but I didn't love everything that he did in his first year post-big contract, and it was a guy that I wanted the Minnesota Vikings to try and sign had he made it to free agency that year, but Kansas City made sure to lock him up, and Trey Smith, I think, maybe if it's age or maybe if it's just one down year, maybe he was dealing with some injuries last year. I think he took a bit of a step back, and that's why he is coming in at number 24. Then number 23, a player that I think outperformed his expectations in Chicago, that is Jonah Jackson. I thought he had a really good season on the interior of the Bears offensive line, opening up a lot of space for Kyle Monungai and for DeAndre Swift, of course, and want to see what he can do. Maybe you can say last year he got the benefit of playing next to Drew Dalman and Darnell Wright, so there's a lot of, how does it look now that he's not playing next to Drew Dalman? We'll have to see with that, but for right now I'm ranking him at number 23. Tate Ratledge, the second-year player from the Detroit Lions, who I actually didn't like coming out of the draft, and at first glance thought he performed poorly, but going back and watching the film, he actually had a fairly decent season for Detroit, and I expect him to take another step forward. So I think I was wrong about Tate Ratledge, and I hopefully am not pendulum swinging to the other side and putting him too high at number 22, but that is where I have Tate Ratledge for the top 32 guards. He's at number 22. Number 21 from Tampa Bay, Ben Bredeson. Really like his play. I think he might end up being top 15. It certainly has the skills to do that, but I'm putting him at number 21 right now. Tyler Steen from the Philadelphia Eagles comes in at number 20. Another solid part of an excellent Philadelphia Eagles offensive line that excels both in the run game and pass blocking. They took a little bit of a step back collectively against the run last year. I'm not sure how much of that was Tyler Steen's fault, but he was the newest guy after he had to replace Mekhi Becton when he went to the Los Angeles Chargers and kind of had a disastrous season there. Then number 19, I'm going Will Fries of the Minnesota Vikings, and I know this is a player that last year, in his first year in a new system, didn't look great all the time, but he still had a lot of wins. There were a lot of times where he was anchoring well, and I think that there was enough in his 2024 film before his Achilles injury that shows me he can be back to that level as an excellent athletic reach blocker if the Vikings go away from a man-run scheme and go more towards the wide zone scheme, which I think they are, bringing Frank Smith in as their assistant coach, a guy that was partially responsible for all the creative run designs in the outside zone for Miami over the last couple of years. So I think if Will Fries gets more outside zone opportunities, he takes steps up the list. If they go back to a man-rushing team like they were and in the gaps a lot last year, I might second-guess that ranking. But for now, he comes in at number 19. At number 18 for the Atlanta Falcons, it's Matthew Bergeron. He is the lesser of two great guards on the Falcons offensive line, but it is an offensive line that probably, along with Bijan Robinson, is the biggest strength for the Atlanta Falcons, and Matthew Bergeron is a part of that. Dominique Puni from the San Francisco 49ers comes in at number 17. I really liked him. I believe he came out of Kansas, and I love the leverage that he's able to get. He's been able to translate that into the NFL despite not being drafted super high. He's taken a starting job in San Francisco, and he has run with it. Number 16, I have the rookie from Baltimore, their first-round pick, Vega Ione. I liked. He was not my favorite guard from the draft. My favorite guard from the draft is not on this top 32 list because he's not projected to be a starter. That was Emmanuel Pregnon from Oregon. I really liked Emmanuel Pregnon a little bit more than I liked Vega Ione. And there's also a couple other players now that they're position, or one player in particular now that his position is going to assuredly be something different, not tackle, that I have up in the rankings that I like a little bit more than Vega Ione as well. I don't think he was quite this top 5 guard in the league that I think a lot of draft experts thought he could be, or thought he was, for whoever ended up drafting him, but I do think he is a top quarter of the league offensive guard, and I think he's going to make an instant impact with the Baltimore Ravens. Then number 15, the former Buffalo Bill, now a member of the New Orleans Saints, David Edwards. He was the better of the 2 guards last year. We already mentioned Osiris Torrance, but when you have been as dominant of a run-blocking team as the Buffalo Bills were over the last 2 or 3 seasons, David Edwards playing next to Connor McGovern was certainly a big part of that. Number 14, the second-year player from the Dallas Cowboys, Tyler Booker. I think he played really well, better than a lot of people might have thought on first watch. I thought he hardly ever gave up ground while protecting Dak Prescott, and I thought when he was playing in power, in down blocking, he was always able to get the angles and was always able to move guys off of their spot. And I think that he continues to progress in his NFL career after being taken by the Dallas Cowboys in the first round, I believe pick number 12 of the 2025 NFL Draft. Number 13, we're going with Mike Onwenu of the New England Patriots, a guy that I think is a little bit more unheralded on the New England offensive line. This was a sneaky good offensive line for New England last year up until the Super Bowl where the Seahawks got the better of them. In Onwenu, you could have made the case for being the top one of those players last year for New England on that O-line. Number 12, the guy that was also playing in that Super Bowl, but on the other team, it's Gray Zabel coming in for the Seattle Seahawks. I'm not sure how much outside zone, or I thought Gray Zabel and Clint Kubiak were a match made in heaven for one another. So hopefully the wide zone, outside zone scheme is continued to be used by Seattle during this 2026 campaign, because that is where I think Gray Zabel thrives at his very, very best. I'm not exactly sure what the scheme is. I haven't done my deep dive into the Seattle Seahawks team just yet. But Gray Zabel I loved last year, and I think he's going to continue to improve. Number 11, Kevin Dotson of the Los Angeles Rams. This Rams philosophy when running the football is, here's the player you're assigned to block, just go block the hell out of him. Kevin Dotson fits that mold. Number 10, Landon Dickerson of the Philadelphia Eagles, dealt with some injuries last year, wasn't always the healthiest when he was on the field, and still was able to fight through it a lot of the time. He's getting up there a little bit more in age, but he's still a Hall of Fame, future Hall of Fame offensive lineman, I think, no doubt. And he comes in at number 10. Chris Lindstrom of the Atlanta Falcons. He is the engine that makes the running game go. He is able to displace nose tackles with ease when trying to reach them on the outside zone that Atlanta ran at a 50% rate last year. Number 8, I'm going with Francis Mauigoa, the rookie from the New York Giants. I loved him as an offensive tackle. I love him even more on the interior, where he doesn't have to overset like you do if you're an outside tackle. You don't have to set wide and then have to hope that your athleticism can do enough to prevent any counter moves. Here, you don't have to get as wide. You can play with your shoulders more horizontal and parallel to the line of scrimmage. When you are protecting the passer, you're also going to get some help on the interior, so I don't think anyone's going to, get over his outside shoulder. I don't think he's ever going to be beat by pure speed and athleticism, and I think he has the power to anchor down anyone that tries to power past him. And then as a run blocker, he is an absolute mauler. So I love that the Giants are moving him into guard because I think he can be a future Hall of Fame guard. And that's why I have him as high as 8 right now. Number 7, another guy from the Dallas Cowboys. This is Tyler Smith. He is him and Cooper Beebe and Tyler Booker and even at times Tyler Guyton had some really good looks throughout last season. I really like what Tyler Smith was able to do. I think he is the top player on that Dallas Cowboys offensive line between all 5 of them. Terrence Steele was the other one that I failed to mention. But he comes in at number 7. Then number 6, I'm going over to Carolina, and that is Damian Lewis coming in. I think a lot of people might not know the name Damian Lewis, but if you watch him on film, you can see why Chuba Hubbard has had so much success over the last 2 years and why Rico Dowdle all of a sudden had a stretch of games where that matched any other player in NFL history over like 2 or 3 games, put up numbers that dwarfed anyone else. I think Damian Lewis, more so than Rico Dowdle, was the key reason for that. Then at number 5, the Los Angeles Rams other guard, Steve Avila, who is set to be a free agent. I expect him to play like he is going to be a free agent here on the final year of his deal, take his game to an even higher level. We're getting in now to number 4, Peter Skoronski of the Tennessee Titans. He might be the only good player that the Titans have on their offensive line. J.C. Latham, I'd like to see more of, but I'm not super confident. I am confident, though, in Peter Skoronski and whatever he is able to do for Tennessee. I think if he can help his teammates look competent on that offensive line, it's going to go a long way in helping Cam Ward and Tony Pollard be able to do stuff for that offense, which they just seemed like they never were able to during the 2025 season because they just never had the time or the space if you're Tony Pollard. Number 3, Indianapolis Colts left guard Quentin Nelson. Has been one of the best in the business. He could easily be my number 1 guy, but I like the top 2 above him just a tinge bit more. And number 2 is from the Denver Broncos. That is Quinn Miners. You could certainly also make the argument for him to be number 1, but I don't want to knock the king off his throne just yet. And that is Chicago Bears guard Joe Thuney is my number 1 guard in the NFL, just a smidge above Quinn Miners and Quentin Nelson. The voting very close between those 3. The voting only done by one person, me, with the knowledge and foresight of the Grey Duck behind me. But Joe Thuney comes in at your number 1 guard after helping revamp the Chicago Bears offense and allowing Ben Johnson's vision to click, even when it got off to some slower starts earlier on in the 2025 season. So let's just run down the top 32 very quickly. Your top 32 offensive guards, the definitive list is this. At number 1, it is the Bears left guard Joe Thuney. Quinn Miners of the Denver Broncos is number 2. The Colts, Quentin Nelson comes in at number 3. Number 4 is Peter Skoronski of the Tennessee Titans. The Rams guard Steve Avila is number 5. Damian Lewis of the Carolina Panthers is number 6. Number 7 is Tyler Smith of the Dallas Cowboys. From the Giants, it's Francis Mauigoa coming in at number 8. Chris Lindstrom of the Atlanta Falcons is number 9. Number 10 is Landon Dickerson of the Philadelphia Eagles. The Rams have the number 11 player in Kevin Dotson. Gray Zabel is from Seattle is the number 12 player. Number 13 is Mike Onwenu from New England. Dallas's Tyler Booker is number 14. 14. Number 15 is David Edwards of the New Orleans Saints. From the Baltimore Ravens, it's Vega Ioane coming in at number 16. Dominic Puni from the San Francisco 49ers is number 17. Number 18 is Matthew Bergeron of the Atlanta Falcons. Minnesota has the number 19 guard. That is Will Fries. Tyler Steen of the Philadelphia Eagles is number 20. Number 21 is Ben Bredeson of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Detroit with coming in at number 22 with Tate Ratledge. Jonah Jackson of the Chicago Bears is number 23. Number 24 is Trey Smith of the Kansas City Chiefs. Baltimore has number 25, John Simpson. Mason McCormick is number 26 from the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 27 is Ed Ingram of the Houston Texans. Isaac Siamalu is number 28 from the Arizona Cardinals. The Las Vegas Raiders have number 29, Jackson Power Johnson. Matt Gonsalves of the Indianapolis Colts is number 30. Number 31 is Osiris Tyrants of the Buffalo Bills. And number 32 of your top 32 offensive guards going into the 2026 season, it is Elijah Vera Tucker of the New England Patriots. There you go. There you have it. The definitive list, the inarguable list. No debates. But go ahead and let me know your favorite top 32 guards, or just top 5, top 10, whatever it is you want, or just let me know your complaints with this list or your agreements in the comments below, either on YouTube or wherever it is that you consume your podcast medium. All right, we are going to be off on Wednesday, but we will be back on Thursday. But keep an eye out, because on Friday we are starting our team preview series, where I go and give a half-hour preview for every team in the NFL. That will come out on Friday, and those are pre-recorded, and those will come out one per day from August 7th through whatever 32 days after August 7th is, so right before I think the regular season gets started with the Seattle Seahawks taking on the New England Patriots on a Wednesday night football game. So that is what you have to look forward to as some extra bonus content on the Grey Duck NFL show. For our regular programming, again, we are here on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so we will be back later on this week to recap the news, and we'll also at that time go through the top 32 tight ends in the NFL as we continue the Grey Duck 250 series leading up to the 2026 season. But for now, that is all we have for you here on the Grey Duck NFL show. Go ahead, give us a like and follow at Grey Duck Sports on Twitter and on YouTube, and at grey.duck.sports on TikTok. I'm Josh Kolojeski signing off and wishing you a good night.